Together we want to take this time to say thank you, and to also let you know that we've been holding you and yours in our thoughts. And also take some time to share with you a little bit more about who we are, our purpose, our mission, and a few of the many things we do here at Polaris Dance Theater. In the beginning of Polaris's inception, we did not set out to be a dance academy or school, nor did we set out to focus on making or creating dance for our professional dance company. There are many wonderful organizations out there providing classes and creating beautiful works of dance in the world. This was not to be our focus or intent. Yes, we offer a variety of dance classes, and yes, we also have created 350 new works for our professional dance company in our short history. When Polaris Dance Theater was founded 19 years ago, our goal and purpose was not to be just another dance or arts organization. Rather, our task and challenge that we set before ourselves was, through dance, change the world and make it a better place than we found it. Through the voices of many, form a collective of hearts and minds beyond the benefit of a single individual or organization. Since our inception, our core values are inclusivity, equity, accessibility, collaboration, and respect. These are not buzzwords or talking points to us, nor is it a new initiative. It is our ingrained core value and culture here. Last year, the Portland dance community representatives came together and awarded Polaris Dance Theater as a leader and model of these principles and practices. We have pioneered the idea that every body should have the right to experience dance and express themselves through movement, no matter their body type, their age, or their physical or mental abilities. The elitist idea of a certain body type or a certain chosen few would be given the privilege to represent the voice of movement, in our opinion, is an archaic and counterproductive step forward. At Polaris Dance Theater, everyone is welcome and respected and valued for who they are. From our Tiny Toes program of aspiring little dancers, where we play and work on coordination and balance, and appreciating everyone's unique way of moving and expressing. To our senior citizens, where we work to improve conditioning, balance, and memory, and rediscover the beauty within all of us. From our smallest adventuresome climbers, working on finding ways to develop strength and confidence, and meeting difficult challenges head-on, to our professional aerial dance artists. Small or tall, young or more experienced, if given the chance, we can all create and accomplish value through our own uniqueness. Our All Access program is one of many that accomplishes this. We believe strongly that everyone is a dancer, that everyone can dance, and that everyone should dance. And that includes all of you sitting here right now. So really what we're doing here is nothing new. More than ever, we need to find ways to come together, to celebrate our commonality and to appreciate and acknowledge our differences. And there's no better way to do that than to dance. Together. Together is an idea that is more important than ever. Together, we did not expect or plan on a world pandemic. We did not plan to isolate, to teach our children from home, to lose our jobs, to shutter the doors of local beloved businesses, or to mourn the loss of so many loved ones. We came together, and we became nimble and flexible, and we began to be more grateful for what used to seem like small gestures or experiences. We celebrated virtually. We grieved together and had hard conversations in an attempt to be better. We found that we are stronger together. Together we danced. We realized that dance is a lifeline and that it's an expression, is a common language that opens hearts and stimulates imaginations. We found that moving our bodies reduces stress and reminds us all to breathe. This year has been a lot of things. While it was mixed with sadness and uncertainty, it did teach us all a thing or two. For us, it's a reminder of the importance of community, a lesson in gratitude, and a humbling reminder of how lucky we are to bring movement and self-expression to everybody here during this important time. We know that we are stronger together, and we know that through dance we awaken the heart and enhance our humanity. If it wasn't for all of you, Polaris Dance Theater would have certainly had to shutter our doors. We're profoundly grateful for all of those who have made it possible for us to be here today. And there are many of you. Thank you. As we approach our year's end and step into 2022, we plan and look forward with deep sense of uncertainty. For this facility is not just a home to Polaris Dance Theater and to everyone in this audience, but it is also the home of many other dance organizations who share our space and studios. We have made it to this point in the post-pandemic world, operating at 20% of our normal pre-pandemic budget. More than ever, we reach out and we ask for your help, support through cash donations, support by bringing friends and others to join and sign up for classes in our programming, support by becoming an active and productive board member of our organization, support by asking your company or business if they can donate or match your donations to this 501c3 organization. Together, it is only together that we will survive and one day continue to thrive in our efforts to bring change through dance and through the generation who will inherit tomorrow. I speak for all of us, including the other organizations that share our space. Together, with gratitude, health, and strength, thank you. Together we want to take this time to say thank you, and to also let you know that we've been holding you and yours in our thoughts. And also take some time to share with you a little bit more about who we are, our purpose, our mission, and a few of the many things we do here at Polaris Dance Theater. In the beginning of Polaris's inception, we did not set out to be a dance academy or school, nor did we set out to focus on making or creating dance for our professional dance company. There are many wonderful organizations out there providing classes and creating beautiful works of dance in the world. This was not to be our focus or intent. Yes, we offer a variety of dance classes, and yes, we also have created 350 new works for our professional dance company in our short history. When Polaris Dance Theater was founded 19 years ago, our goal and purpose was not to be just another dance or arts organization. Rather, our task and challenge that we set before ourselves was, through dance, change the world and make it a better place than we found it. Through the voices of many, form a collective of hearts and minds beyond the benefit of a single individual or organization. Since our inception, our core values are inclusivity, equity, accessibility, collaboration, and respect. These are not buzzwords or talking points to us, nor is it a new initiative. It is our ingrained core value and culture here. Last year, the Portland dance community representatives came together and awarded Polaris Dance Theater as a leader and model of these principles and practices. We have pioneered the idea that every body should have the right to experience dance and express themselves through movement, no matter their body type, their age, or their physical or mental abilities. The elitist idea of a certain body type or a certain chosen few would be given the privilege to represent the voice of movement, in our opinion, is an archaic and counterproductive step forward. At Polaris Dance Theater, everyone is welcome and respected and valued for who they are.
Give y'all a few minutes to get set. Oh my God. Can someone help Candace? Hello, testing. Okay. What? Are we live? Really? And we're live? Okay, folks, it looks like we're live on YouTube right now. We're going to give the candidates a few moments to sit down and get comfortable and clean up a spill on aisle 1.
It's been busy. I had a judicial settlement conference with Judge Swade.
Oh, I like Judge Swade.
Yeah, he's good.
He's a good human. I think.
He is. I've had him before and like him, and
Yeah.
it's not always successful.
How are we doing, Nan?
That's okay.
Looking good? All right, folks, I'm going to get everybody to sit down and stay quiet. We've got some wonderful candidates here this evening. Actually, quite a few candidates, and not all the candidates as well. Unfortunately, we could only fit so many candidates in to the events that we had going on, but we definitely tried our best to reach out. And Mike, can I confirm that I'm actually looking at that camera right over there? Thank you, sir. So thank you all for joining us this evening, joining the Multnomah County Democrats at Polaris Dance Theater. And I want to thank Robert and his partner Sarah for offering us the opportunity to host this event here. You can go to polarisdance.org to find out more, but we'll also send out some more information in an email after the event. Thank you all. Robert, seriously, thank you. This is a wonderful space. We really appreciate it. And again,
Yay.
that's Robert. Also, for the Multnomah County Democrats, this is the first event that we've had live in maybe over 2 years. So thank you all for showing up and coming out. I know it's brave in this new frontier, but I think it's important that we kind of get out and do what we can when we can. And some of us safely as well. Some of us are wearing masks, and I appreciate that. Health is something you take on yourself. So, oh my gosh. Thank you all for joining us. I appreciate you all showing up. We have before us the 4 individual candidates for county commissioner chair position, which is obviously a very vital and crucial position, and I'm sure they'll explain to you why. So we're going to go ahead and get kicked off. Nan, please yell at me if I forgot something. I definitely want to make a quick note to everybody out there. This is our first event live in a while. A little rusty on this, but I hope you will be patient with us and get through this with us. Okay, good? Okay, so do we want to do a quick mic check, Mike? Mics are good. All right, thank you, folks. So we've got a little timer clock right down there for the candidates. The opening statement is 90 seconds. We've got 3 questions that we'd like for each of you to answer. We'll also give you 90 seconds for those answers. And then I believe we're going to be taking some questions from the audience as well on written cards. We'll get those collected from the audience, and they'll bring them down to me, and we'll answer a few more questions. And then we have another session after this with the Portland City Council. Whew. Okay. So, tonight, this evening, we have Commissioner Lori Stegman, Commissioner Jessica Peterson, Commissioner Sharon Myron, and Sharia Mayfield, who I think we spoke on the phone once.
Shariah.
Shariah, thank you.
No worries.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
All this evening. So the 3 questions that, well, I'm going to run all 3 questions real quick, just so that you all can kind of get them in your head, and then I'll come back to the first one. The first one is, what do you think will be your approach to solving the biggest problems facing the city or county? We're obviously county here. 2, what are your top 3 priorities and why? And then, being that this is a nonpartisan position, but given that you're a Democrat, explain to us how that shows up in your values, in what you think of our city's problems are, and how you intend to solve them as a chair of Multnomah County Commission. Okay, so again, first question, and the order that we'll go in, we'll just start from left to right, and then we'll switch it up after that. What do you think will be your approach to solving the biggest problems facing the county?
Do we do an opener? Are we doing opening statements?
Oh my God! See yes. Openers, 90-second openers. We'll start left to right. Thank you so much, Commissioners.
Shariah.
Shariah, thank you. Shariah.
Okay, let's begin. I'm Shariah Mayfield. I'm an employment rights attorney. I do workers' rights, discrimination, retaliation type cases downtown in Portland. I also am a law professor of privacy law at Willamette. And the reason I am running, and you'll hear my priorities, is because I'm very disillusioned with current leadership. I don't think that they're responding to the will of the people and the need to more rapidly and urgently address the homeless crisis, in particular, the livability issues, the garbage, cleaning up our streets, making it safer, really these quality of life issues that we're facing now. And so unlike my opponents, I'm the only candidate who has said, this is not a first resort, but as a last resort, I would look into enforcement of the camp ban laws, for example. We need to get people off the sidewalks. It's not safe for them. It's not safe for the neighbors. Ramp up humane alternatives. So not just regular shelter, which a lot of homeless people don't like, but also RV parks, tiny homes, low and high barrier sanctioned campsites where people can go to with hygiene services, garbage removal, connect them to Social Security benefits so that the federal government can start picking up some of the tab as well. I don't think a lot of people know that, but a lot of people outside, apparently, they do have disabilities, both mental and physical, so connecting them to government resources at the federal level will ease some of the local taxpayer burden. Expanding dual diagnosis centers where you can get mental health and drug addiction treatment is a priority because the homeless crisis is a drug crisis as well. We need to acknowledge that, and I will be working rapidly to fix our livability issues.
Thank you, Shariah.
Thank you.
Sharon.
Thank you. Sharon Myron, and Sitting Commissioner, and I am running for chair because people are living in squalor and dying in increasing numbers on our streets, and that is just not okay. It really does boil down to that. That's symbolic or emblematic of a lot of the other issues that we are facing in our community. But that is a baseline, and I am an ER doctor. I also am a volunteer with Portland Street Medicine, so I go out to encampments and I care for people who are living outside and provide services and supports and medical care. I talk to them. I've talked to hundreds of people, and what we are accepting is not okay from their perspective, from community at large perspective, and I feel like I have been screaming. I thought as a commissioner, one sitting commissioner, you could make the difference to change our systems, behavioral health, homelessness, public safety and public health. But I have learned as a sitting commissioner, you have to be in charge to do it. And the role of chair is an executive position, unlike at the mayor, with the mayor. Chair sets the agenda. The chair really owns the $2.8 billion budget. The chair oversees all the department heads, and that is who sets the vision and direction for the county. And I, as an ER doctor, I am impatient. I feel we need to care for people living outside and doing things differently. We'll talk about some of those ways, I think, in the next questions, but that is why I'm running. It's my passion, and it's not okay what's happening right now.
Thank you, Commissioner Myron. Commissioner Peterson.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jessica Vega Peterson. I use she, her pronouns. So 16 years ago, my husband and I bought our home in East Portland, and it was a part of the city that we could afford. It was a part of a place where we knew we could be part of our community. It is a place that is different from any other place that I lived in Portland. It is made up from people who come from all over the world, who work for this community, but who are oftentimes working hard just to keep their heads above water. I ran my first campaign on sidewalks and on the dangerous speeds that people drive through my town. Community came together to support me, and together we were able to get sidewalks and a whole lot more for East Portland. And I have brought that power building approach to every issue I've tackled, whether at the state level or at the county level. As the first Latina to serve in the Oregon House, I championed bringing paid sick leave to every Oregon worker, passing tax policies that help keep seniors in their home, raising Oregon's minimum wage, and getting coal out of our energy mix. At Multnomah County, I worked with neighborhood associations and small businesses to site shelters successfully and get services into districts. I fought to get better COVID response and resources to our BIPOC community who was most impacted by COVID. And I led the fight for preschool for all, an investment in quality early childhood education that is making a generational difference for our children and our workers. I have the experience, the record of accomplishment, and the vision to take on our housing and houselessness crisis, combat climate change, protect community safety, and combat systemic racism. That is why I have the broadest and deepest coalition of organizations and community leaders supporting me in this race, including Ask Me, the Portland Firefighters, APANO, Latino Network, Oregon League of Conservation Voters, Pro-Choice Oregon.
Thank you, Commissioner Peterson.
Who know I'm the best person to be Multnomah County Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Stegman.
Good evening. My name is Lori Stegman, and I currently serve as your Vice Chair on the Multnomah County Board. As an immigrant and the first Asian American ever to serve on the board, I'm running for chair to represent every person who feels invisible, who has been told that their voice doesn't count, and that no matter what you do, you will never be good enough. We have a lot of life-threatening challenges in our community, from homelessness to addiction to gun violence and generational poverty, all steeped in racial injustice. Having experienced many of these traumas myself, I have a deep understanding of the barriers and the solutions of how we can go upstream and offer people access to opportunities to make better choices for themselves. And if we do that, then I know we can make our communities stronger and safer, which is why, as your next chair, I'll increase investments in homeless services, public safety, expand behavioral health resources, create an economic development and workforce stability department, create an office of reentry services to prevent people from churning through our criminal justice system, update our civil commitment laws, and create a team similar to the Portland Street Response, and create a 24/7 first responder drop-off site and detox center with urgency. I'm the only candidate with lived experience who has decades of business and economic development expertise, who can change the trajectory that we are on. I'm ready to do that, and I hope you are too.
Thank you so much. Okay, we'll go to the questions now. And also, quick introduction for myself, for those of you who do not know who I am. My name is Julio Castilla. I'm the chair of the Multnomah County Democrats. This event was brought to you by the campaign committee and our campaign chair here. Thank you, Nan, so much for this. Really appreciate you guys working hard on this. And thank you all the volunteers that showed up. We're going to go to the questions now. Question one, I'll repeat that. What do you think will be your approach to solving the biggest problems facing the county? I'm just going to bounce around and call out names. We'll go ahead and start with Commissioner Myron. And remember, 90 seconds.
It's so hard. Thank you. Okay, so the biggest issues facing the county are my biggest priorities. I think that will come up in another question. So they are people dying on our streets in increasing numbers and unsheltered, behavioral health, addictions, and so substance use disorder and mental health issues on the streets, and also in youth, our elders, and so much more, and public health and safety. And because I have worked in these areas for pretty much my whole working life, substantively on the ground in the systems, I know the people, I know the systems, I know the organizations, and I can jump right in. I don't need a learning curve. I can jump in and take action on plans that I have developed, on issues that I've brought up for years. And again, as I've mentioned, because they have not been prioritized by leadership at the county, that as chair can take those systems approaches and actually implement beginning on day one. So it will be action oriented. It will also be collaborative with my fellow commissioners who are wonderful, and the community and health providers, healthcare systems, and people who are impacted most by the decisions we make, and our fellow colleagues at the city. We need to be implementing approaches that work, that are data-driven. So I will
Thank you, Commissioner Myron.
putting in plans and
We're going to hold you to the 90 seconds, folks. We've got a lot of candidates to get through. Thank you so much. So that same question, and please let me know if I need to repeat the question at all. I will go to you, Commissioner Peterson.
Thank you so much. So this is a great question because it's not just about like what issue, but it's how you approach any issue. And I will say that for me, with any issue that I take on, my leadership always starts with a broad table that includes the communities that's impacted most by the issue at hand. That is how I approached my work in the legislature, whether it was getting paid sick time passed. It's how we created Preschool for All, bringing together parents, bringing together folks from healthcare and housing, community-based organizations, workers and teachers to get something that is creating a new system that gives children the chance to get an investment in them that is going to be life-changing. And that is how I'm going to take on every issue as Multnomah County Chair. I have proven time and time again that I'm an extremely collaborative, effective worker that is able to work with people across the aisle, across jurisdictions. I'm the only candidate in this race that has a history of working at both the state and local levels across jurisdictional lines to create solutions to our big issues. I don't need to wait till I'm county chair. I've never waited a second to be able to take action on the things that are impacting my community, whether it was what's happening in East Portland, what's happening at the county, or what's happening at the state. And I will not stop in taking action on housing and homelessness, on climate, the crisis that we're facing, and how we're approaching all of the issues. I will bring a collaborative approach to budgeting. I have a deep respect for our county workers, and I think I will raise the relationship and the partnership we have with our employees who are putting the mission into effect. And I bring people together and get things done. And
Thank
I'll
you,
continue
Commissioner
to do that.
Peterson.
Thank you.
Candidate Mayfield.
Great. So quite frankly, we have the second highest unsheltered population in the United States here in Oregon. We've been in a homeless emergency since 2015. It's been about 7 years. And 3 commissioners are sitting next to me who constitute a majority on the Board of Commissioners to make change. And so I hear them talking about working together and making that change, but the 3 of them alone have not passed policy to deal with the urgent emergency that's exploding on our streets. And some people have called me hard-nosed in my approach because I'm the only one saying we need to deal with this stuff more rapidly. We need to get people off the streets into treatment. A lot of them can't make the best decisions for themselves because they suffer from substance abuse disorder, drug addiction, mental health crises. And we have the worst drug addiction treatment access in the United States here in Oregon. So it's no wonder that people who need help and are on the streets are not getting it because it's not easy to get. My priority always in every policy is urgency. That means acting every day with critical urgency, channeling the frustration of the angry majority right now. The majority is furious that we're not doing enough, or not me, that leadership is not doing enough. And I'm coming in as that competent disruptor. I have a record of accomplishment, published author. I've been on C-SPAN. I've been on Fox. I don't like Fox, but I've been on Fox. And so I opened my own firm last year on International Women's Day, which was great. And so I'm able to get things done for real, unlike people giving you empty promises, and yet they're the ones that are in the positions of authority to give us what we need. I will act with critical urgency. I will bring together the right people. I will have Plan B, Plan C, Plan D. I don't care. We will get things done.
Thank you, Candidate Mayfield. Commissioner Stegman.
Thank you, Julio. Well, I think it's really about inviting people to the table who haven't historically had a voice. And so that's what I will be doing, is not only will I invite people to the table, but I will welcome them. I think that our collective wisdom is how we can solve the problems at hand, and I will use my position as the chair to reflect and elevate the voices that are not at the current tables. I'll use a bottom-up approach, with my lived experience of being somebody who grew up with housing and food insecurity and growing up in a biracial family. I understand many of the challenges that people live with every single day. And I'll intertwine that approach with something called my Economic Marginalization Index. And it's something similar to the social determinants of health, and it's on my Multnomah County website. But it highlights the drivers of what is driving generational poverty and all of the root causes of the symptoms, and homelessness and violence. All of those are symptoms of trauma, of poverty, and violence. And so we have to get upstream and address those issues. I'll also work with the faith-based community, with businesses, with neighborhood associations, and especially people with lived experience. Those closest to the problems or have experienced the challenges in life, I truly believe that they hold the answers. And I'll bring an economic development lens to that. Everybody needs a family wage job, and it's hard to think about, how are you ever going to succeed if you don't have a place to sleep? So really, by helping people get set up and secure in where they are and where they're sleeping is where we'll start.
Thank you, Commissioner Stegman. Okay, question 2 is, what are your 3 top priorities and why? And this time we'll start with Candidate Mayfield.
My top priority is the homeless crisis, which overlaps with mental health and drug addiction. So you can just combine those all together. We're facing these exploding emergencies. It's only getting worse. And the commissioners against me have primarily focused on permanent housing as a solution. And while that's fine and we need to continue building affordable housing, the affordable housing crisis is different than the homeless crisis in some ways, in that the homeless crisis is primarily a drug addiction crisis, a substance abuse crisis. I'm the only candidate who has worked on civil commitment appeals, and I know that if you just throw people with mental health, severe mental health issues into a home without proper services and treatment, they will burn it down. They will cause property destruction, and you will face more lawsuits and more issues in a court that will cost this county even more money to deal with. And so we have to be smart here. We have to get the people that want treatment accessible, free, cheap, easy treatment, walk in. I keep saying, until treatment is as easy as fast food, this problem will not solve itself. There's a reason we're 50th in the nation for drug addiction treatment, because we do not prioritize helping those people. Some people need to be mandatorily treated, meaning if you are an imminent danger to yourself or others, I see it all the time, people walking in the middle of the street, flailing around, they need to be in mandatory treatment. They're not going to choose it themselves. So my priorities are getting people the treatment they need, getting people off the streets, hopefully voluntarily giving the homeless people options, treating them as humans. 66% have not been reached out by case management workers. I even have a loved one who's housing unstable. It's not okay. It's not right. And then, yes, we need to enforce the laws. At some point, we have to do it. Laws without enforcement are just recommendations.
Thank you, candidate Mayfield. Commissioner Stegman.
So my three priorities are housing, public safety, and economic recovery. Of course, housing, because I believe is a basic human right, and everyone deserves to be housed. And the way that we'll do that is by housing people. So I have gotten 334 units of deeply affordable housing built in my district. I'm also working on master leases, connecting nonprofits with property management companies to get 20 people housed right now. And many of you know that even if these folks can afford the monthly rent, the barriers sometimes are so great. If you have a poor rental history or if you have any type of justice involvement, you will never be able to rent an apartment. But by doing these master leases, we can overcome those barriers. I'll also work on public safety, because everyone should feel safe, and it shouldn't matter what color your skin is or what zip code you live in. I'll support more community policing models. I have funded and sponsored Multnomah County Sheriff's Hope Team, which is an outreach team to connect people who are houseless to services. And I'll also fund the district attorney's office so that we can have more. Right now, we don't have enough public defenders. We don't have enough attorneys. And what's happening is people's cases are languishing within our system. So we need to make sure that we have more prosecutors and public defenders. I'll also work on economic development, because that is how you solve generational poverty. And what I will do is I'll create an economic development and workforce stability department at the county as soon as I'm chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Stegman. Commissioner Myron.
Thank you. So my first priority is to address the estimate of, say, 8,000 people that are dying on our streets and living in worse and worse conditions outside. I feel like calling it houselessness changes the narrative, and we start going into this housing direction. This is it is truly a humanitarian crisis in the real sense of the word. And this is what we need to be addressing first and foremost. We can be doing that by creating pathways to housing in ways that meet people's needs living outside, that are faster, cheaper, and at scale that meets needs. We hear numbers like tens and hundreds of housing units. We need 8,000. Nothing we do is going to match that level of need in the near immediate term. We also need to address behavioral health, not just for people living outside for severe mental illness and addictions, our youth, our kids, our elders who have been facing huge challenges with isolation. I work in the ER. The youngest kid I saw there on a hold was 8 years old because they wanted to kill themselves. This is not okay. They were there for days, and this isn't a system that's okay. We need to change our systems. And finally, public health and public safety, which do actually intersect. The common feature of my priorities is A, it's the core work of the county. B, I have a deep expertise and a passion for this work, for public service, because it is what I have done my entire life, and it is—
Thank you, Commissioner Myron.
Life and safety. Thank you.
Commissioner Peterson.
Thank you. So I know I'm going to run out of time, so I'm just going to ask people if they want to get more details. I have a lot of detailed plans on my website, jessicavegapeterson.com. So as Multnomah County Chair, housing and homelessness is going to be my #1 priority. And we really have to make sure that we are taking the resources that we have with the supportive housing services measure to invest in things that are going to address the crisis on our street right away. And that includes investing in shelters and shelter alternatives. It means investing in permanent supportive housing. And by that, I don't just mean housing. You have to have the wraparound services that are going to help people be stable and successful in housing. And that's exactly what this measure is built to do. And we need to make sure that we are working closely with the City of Portland and the other Multnomah County cities to urgently respond to the trash, health, and safety challenges that are facing us with so many people sleeping outside each night in Multnomah County. I also think that we are facing an epidemic of gun violence and other serious crimes, and nowhere is that felt more acutely than in my East Portland neighborhood. As county chair, I'll work closely with all of our partners in our public safety and justice systems to direct resources to combat gun violence in areas most impacted by it, and ensure that the resources that we are spending are being leveraged effectively to support our community organization partners that are doing the critical work at the community level with community, and making sure that our departments within Multnomah County are also coordinated in the response that they're doing. And finally, another issue that is very important that I'm out of time talking about is the growing economic divide between the rich and the poor. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Okay, question 3. And if you can remember, this is even though it's a nonpartisan position, but given that you're a Democrat, explain to us how what you do, explain to us how those values show up in the work that you do in solving the city's problems, and how you intend to focus on that as a commissioner, as a chair of the commission, bringing out those democratic priorities. And we'll start with Commissioner Myron.
Thank you. For me, democratic priorities have always been about basic humanity. It is housing as a human right. It is healthcare as a human right. I've been very active in healthcare for all Oregon. I believe in single payer. We'll be introducing a resolution at the county regarding that later next month. And that is the core, it is at my core, it is the work that I do, the systems I work in, and we need to be meeting people's basic needs, and we also need to be doing that. We have incredible workers, incredible people doing this work on the front line every day who go out and meet people where they are. We need to be supporting them. So we at the county need to be providing, and not only at the county, those we contract with, we need to be providing the living wage jobs beyond the living wage jobs, but so that people are supported and paid for the incredible work that they do every day, which right now they are doing, and for basically nothing, and ending up in places where they're serving clients and ending up being where their clients are, living outside, living in their cars. It's not acceptable. So we need to be working on that, supporting our employees in the work they do to support people.
Thank you, Commissioner Myron. Commissioner Peterson.
So the democratic values are so important to me. I was a Democratic PCP in my district for 10 years. And that's really where I had the experience of working within community to get people who have not been politically active before, who felt left out in East Portland, to actually be engaged. And this is built on like really a generational tradition in my household. My grandfather was a block captain, as it was called at the time, for the Democratic Party as a union member. And my mom was an activist too. So to me, being a Democrat means being active and taking strong and bold action on the problems that you see in front of you that are affecting you and your community. And I appreciate the long hours of volunteer work that go on to putting something like this on. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. But I would say that the issues that especially the Multnomah County Dems prioritize, including the right to a healthy planet, the right to quality public education, the right to be treated with dignity and respect no matter who you are all things that have touched the work that I've done as a public servant in the past 10 years and how I will work as a county chair. Right now, we are facing narratives from people who are saying that our problems are too big to solve, or that they're trying to really sow fear and division within our community. And I understand the fear and the worry. I understand looking around your neighborhood and seeing things don't look the same. But I have to say that these naysayers underestimate our ability to come together and make things done. And that's exactly why I'm running for county chair, to have that impact.
Thank you, Commissioner Peterson. Candidate Mayfield.
Sure. To me, being a Democrat, and I've been independent for a lot of my life as well, never Republican, is, let's make that clear, is really doing the will of the people. And right now, we look at statistics showing that 80-something% are not happy with the homeless crisis response, or with drug addiction, or with policing, or with all these issues that are going on. And so being a Democrat to me is about representing what the people want, pooling people together, really just having satisfaction from the populace that what you're doing as a leader is responding to what they want. So obviously, issues of climate change, that we're in climate chaos right now. That's clear. Education. I am a law professor. I do value education immensely. Some people have said I'm hard-nosed, but I would be the #1 socialist if it came to education. I think that should be subsidized. It should be free all the way up through higher education. It's one of the most important things that we can provide to people in this society to increase their earning potential. I'm a workers' rights attorney. I do discrimination cases all the time. I'm Muslim. I'm half Egyptian, half Arab myself. I don't always throw that out there because, to me, the diversity, equity, and inclusion should be informing every policy that you're putting forth. So it's not a separate priority. It's built into the priorities that I already have. And so as a Democrat, I don't separate those things out. I just say, let's pull the people together. Even in my own campaign, I have Republicans, I have Democrats, Libertarians, Independents coming together. What other campaigns can say that? And so having us all come together, responding to what the people actually want, giving them fresh vision, giving them hope. Who else is doing that? And that's what I think democracy and the Democratic Party is about and should be about, if it's not already.
Thank you, Candidate Mayfield. Commissioner Stegman.
Thank you, Julio. So yeah, all of the democratic values show up in the work that I do every single day. One of them is around racial equity. I'm really proud that I pushed for and we declared racism as a public health crisis at the county. That's a pretty significant step. And I've been an outspoken advocate to stop Asian hate. I also conducted many Know Your Rights trainings. If you recall, pre-COVID, there was a lot of different types of raids going on, and people were fearful. And as an immigrant, I understand that and want to protect people. And I think it goes back to the issue of getting to the root causes around generational poverty. So we distributed close to $100 million in rental assistance during COVID. And I am incredibly grateful because I know that that prevented so many people from becoming homeless. But what we never did is we went back and said, do you have a family wage job? What are you going to do 3 months, 6 months, 9 months from now? And so one of the things that I've done is I started a construction diversity equity fund that sets aside 1% of our capital projects to go into a fund that supports women and people of color so that they can enter the trades and get support and go into pre-apprenticeships. The other thing is around reforming our criminal justice system. I introduced something called the Legal Services Day, where people have an opportunity to go do community service in exchange, for expunging their records, which removes those barriers.
Thank you, Commissioner Stegman. Okay, so surprisingly, we're early, which I always find really interesting because if you've ever attended some of our meetings, you know they can run long. So thank you all so much for helping to move this along and minding the clock. I really appreciate that. So since we are a little bit early, we're going to go ahead and move into some of the questions from the audience. I'll take a privilege here and ask one question of each of the candidates because this is something that candidate Mayfield, I think, was kind of starting to touch on a little bit more about, being a Democrat and what our values are. But I think with such partisan politics right now, and I think even with Democrats asking themselves, why am I a Democrat in some ways? What does it mean to be a Democrat today? It's so defined now on the right. What does it mean to be on the left? What does it mean to be a Democrat? What are those values? What are those things that we can stand out and say, this is why we're Democrats? So I'll give everybody just a quick second to noodle on that one, and then we're going to go ahead and move on to the audience questions as well. But if anybody, I'll let anybody answer it if they feel like they've got an answer, and we'll, if you don't mind, just stick to like maybe 60 seconds on this one so we can get through the audience questions. Or I'll just pick someone. Okay, I'll start with you, Commissioner Peterson.
Okay, and it's Commissioner Vega Peterson.
Vega Peterson, thank
There
you.
you go. Okay. So, this is such an interesting question. To me, being a Democrat means that you fundamentally believe that every human has the right to thrive, that they have a right to basic needs like housing, like clean air, like clean water, like an education, the right to make the choices about their own body and be who they truly are. And that as a Democrat, we fight to get those policies enacted in law at the local level, at the state level, and at the federal level. And that is really at the core of what it means to be a Democrat for me. It means, and it means making sure that people have opportunity. And so and like I said, I have a long history of Democratic activism in my family. And I remember a conversation that I had with my mom one time, which was about her being pro-choice. And I asked her, because she's a Mexican Catholic, so I'm like, do you support abortion? And she said, yes. And I was so shocked, but she said, I don't want old white men in Washington, D.C. making decisions about my body. And to me, that was such a fundamental thing about who we are and the ability that we have to choose what our lives are going to be like. And that is being a Democrat to me as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Vega Peterson. Commissioner Myron.
Thank you. And I actually think about this quite a lot. And I appreciate what Commissioner Vega Peterson said about basic needs, and I absolutely agree with that, needing a basic right, or having the right to health care, having the right to clean air, all of that, housing. I also believe that being a Democrat traditionally has been around inclusivity, having a big tent that we are all in this together. And I think about that in the times that we're in and what that means. Like how, and I don't have the answer to that question, so I'm actually not going to end up answering this question fully, but I think about it a lot because as Democrats, I think that we need to continue to value inclusion, and I see more and more just in our communities that we shut people out if they don't meet certain democratic values. It's sort of a chicken and egg thing. How do we define being a Democrat? How do we include all in that big tent? And
Thank you,
support
Commissioner
those
Myron.
values? Thanks.
Candidate Mayfield.
So like I said, I have been independent a lot of my life and kind of gone in and out of being a Democrat. People would probably be surprised. I voted for Bernie. I voted for Jill Stein as well, who was part of the Green Party. So I'm not really beholden to a particular party. And I want to make that clear that to me, actually, being a Democrat, the nice thing about it is it's something where you can kind of define what it means for you yourself. And so this concept of inclusivity that Commissioner Myron is talking about, sometimes I feel as though there's always a risk when you're the majority anywhere. And here in especially Multnomah County, Democrats are a supermajority. And so you always have to be checking yourself. We have to remind ourselves, just like when you have these supermajority red states or whatever, you get really worried when you have something leaning too far one way without any checks and balances. And so for me, embracing the Democratic Party, which I've been primarily part of, and being on the left means also setting a space for yourself and saying, you know what, I am a Muslim, Egyptian, American minority with a certain background, with certain experiences, and I can bring that to the table, and other people who have their own background should feel free to do that as well and to bring their own lived experiences to the table, and I really hope that the Democratic Party can continue to embrace that.
Thank you, Candidate Mayfield. Commissioner Stegman.
Thank you, Julio. I think it's really about living your values. And, what I always use as my barometer is my children. And if I can be the kind of parent that I'm proud of and that my children are proud of, then I think I'm doing a pretty good job of not only just being a Democrat, but being a decent human being. And I think that being a Democrat means accepting people with all abilities and recognizing and embracing our differences. I think that's what makes our our country beautiful is this mosaic of different people and different cultures and different backgrounds. As an Asian American, I'm always perturbed that they don't break out the ethnicities, because we are not one monolithic race, right? And I know that that happens in many other cultures as well. I was adopted. Many of you may have heard of Holt International. So I was part of the famous Holt airlift, where 3,000 starving Korean children were adopted to American families. So I've always, been incredibly blessed, and that's what I think that being a Democrat is accepting people no matter who they are.
Thank you, Commissioner Stegman. Okay, we're going to move on to the audience questions, and I have 3 in front of me. The first question is, tell us the specific policies that you have enacted or will enact as chair to alleviate houselessness. And we will start with candidate Mayfield.
How long are we doing this one?
90 seconds.
Okay, thank you. I got to time it. I luckily have my home share program here and my alternative housing. So I have a 5-step plan to deal with our livability crisis, which starts with goalposts and metrics so people actually know if we're improving or not. So we keep periodically updating the people. Number 1, that's only fair. And as to the issues of houselessness, there's 2 things. The alternative housing, which I already mentioned, which is ending the illegal camping that's happening all over the streets. It's inhumane, it's unhygienic, it's not safe for them, it's not safe for us. People are getting hit by cars on the side of the road. People are out of it, walking in traffic. We just can't continue along that route anymore. So, but in tandem with that, we need to boost sanitary camp areas where people have the option to use their own items. I've spoken to the people on the sides of on the highway, a homeless person who said, 40% of us would just continue, we'd like to continue camping. We don't want to go into a shelter. And I say, then make that work. Give them that option. But some people want to go to a shelter. Some people want to go to an RV park. Give them options. Some people are able to go into housing. The 3,000 challenge, for example, I'm not sure that it's economically feasible, but if it is, more power to them. Let's start doing all the solutions we have out there and working with different options to try to hit the problem from all sides. And then home share. Actually, Move in Multnomah sounds very much like my home share program, and it just opened recently, which is these master lease programs and giving incentives to small landlords so that they can get people to move into their homes and rent out to roommates, to subletters, and so on. So I would continue to support that, but make sure that there are protections in place if there's a conflict with the tenant and landlord, to have a backup place where the tenant can go, like a motel that the county pays for, so they don't end up out on the streets or get an eviction, or they're not paying their rent and the landlord is angry. We need the assurances to both the tenant and the landlord.
Thank you, candidate Mayfield. Commissioner Stegman.
Yeah, I have been working on master leases, as I mentioned, connecting 20 individuals with a property management company. And these folks make $20 to $24 an hour. But you all know, it's just like buying a house. If you don't have enough money for a down payment and the first month's rent, you're never going to be able to rent an apartment. But that's where Multnomah County can come in, and we are coming in, is that we have money set aside to where we can help people get their foot in the door to that housing. We're working on the Behavioral Health Resource Center that's going to open up in the fall, that's in downtown. It'll have about 32 beds of emergency and transitional housing. And also in my neck of the woods, in Troutdale, people are always saying, well, why doesn't government give land? I did that. I led the charge to transfer 4 acres to Home Forward, and we will be building 100 units of affordable housing in Troutdale. I also removed the land use barriers for 224 units, also in Gresham. And now we have family-size units. We have Hacienda, who is a culturally specific provider there. And then I'll fund more transitional housing, like my father's house and Bridgeway of Hope. So the Bridgeway of Hope is 90 beds, residential beds for men, and they will receive job training. They have a culinary school. These are for men that are just coming out of recovery, and this is that first stop. So it's about having that continuum of you enter maybe into emergency shelter, but then where do you go after you're clean and sober, maybe to transitional housing.
Thank you, Commissioner Stegman. Commissioner Vega Peterson.
So There are a lot of specific policies that people have been talking about. I have some on my website that are really divided into short-term, midterm, and long-term strategies for addressing housing and houselessness. I think the first thing we need to do is to get people off the street as quickly as possible and into safer spaces is using the resources that we currently have available today. I'm a big supporter of the 3000 Challenge PDX, which Multnomah County has also partnered with getting landlords on board with getting people who are experiencing houselessness in housed and having supports for them so that they have some surety about those people being safe and stable in those housing. That's a way that we can get potentially thousands of people sheltered right away. We also have to look at safe parking sites and making sure that we are having folks who are currently living in cars and RVs to have a place where they can go, where it's a sanctioned place that they can go, and they can also have access to services and sanitations that they don't have now. We have to be putting a data system into place that is tracking the work that we're doing and making sure that we are using our resources, the resources that voters have approved effectively, and that we are being transparent and communicative to the public about how those resources are being used. And we have to make sure that we're focusing on the way that people experiencing housing and houselessness in a disparate ways because of racial biases. So we have to be engaging more culturally specific organizations and community members to help respond to this problem. Midterm, we have to be looking at the master leasing. We have to be doing continuous improvement on our group. And then in long term, we have to build more housing in this Portland region as well as in Oregon as a whole. We are underbuilding at the rates of 10,000 across the state per year. The affordable housing bonds that have been passed locally are a good start. The additional resources that the state has been putting in is a good start, but we have to be engaging with the private sector of how we can get them to just be able to build more housing across all economic spectrums.
Thank you, Commissioner Vega-Peterson. Commissioner Myron.
Thank you. And I think this is actually a core differentiating point where we have very aligned values. I think all of us who are running for this office, and a very different perspective and plans to address the issue. And I think one of the things that I continue to hear as sort of talking points at the county, and I know that my fellow commissioners mentioned, we talk about tens and hundreds of shelter beds in different sort of sporadic areas and think that that's good. It's good for individual people, that is wonderful, but we have 8,000-ish people living outside. Tens and hundreds are not even a drop in the bucket. We need to be doing things at scale fast. The 3,000, challenge, great concept. There's not a plan there. If there were a plan that could be implemented, great. What I have proposed to prevent the death and the true humanitarian crisis and squalor in which people are living is to add two things to our current system. One is a new form of sort of shelter, if you want to call it that. Microsites, I'm going to call them. They're tiny footprint sites that have, say, 10 shelter units, 10 places people can be with basic amenities. So it is toilets, it is hand washing, it's shower and laundry, and it's trash pickup. Those tiny footprints, and then you help people who are living outside connect to those places. They can be set up quickly, they're cheap, and you help people get to them. And if we did one in every neighborhood in Portland, that's 1,000 people.
Thank you, Commissioner
Take care
Myron.
of people, that's what they say they want. It's a win-win. That's the kind of thing we could be implementing now.
Okay, we're going to move on to one more question because we're getting closer to running out of time. I didn't read this one yet. Most constituents in East County feel left out, especially when it comes to policies and services. Recently, also a huge uptick in gun violence as well. What will you do about this? And this time we'll start with Commissioner Vega-Peterson.
Yeah, so, where I live in East Portland is really, I feel right on the divide. I live on the easternmost neighborhood in Portland, and a lot of the, ways that we live our lives as a family, we frequent restaurants and businesses, our athletic club, all of that is in East County, not just in the city of Portland. So And I'm very aware of the differences of how things are being impacted by people who live on the west side of Portland, or how things are being impacted by people who are living in East County. And one of the ways that you see that is really in the diversity of the people who are living in East Portland and East County. I have been proud to work on issues that have had countywide impact, like Preschool for All, where we engaged with people, with business owners, with schools, all across the county to make sure that the program that we were building was right for everyone, no matter where they were in the county. I've done the same thing as we're looking at the wood smoke ordinances that I have worked on at the county level, and what we're doing right now with policies. So that's something that I would continue to do. I know with the business income tax increase that we did, we definitely needed to engage and understand the impacts on East County cities. And so that would be a priority of mine, is making sure that we have liaisons in the chair's office, not just in District 4, who does an amazing job of working with our East County folks, but also directly in the chair's offices, so that we're responding to that. And the same thing, the gun violence issue I've already talked about, but this is something that also has countywide impact. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Vega-Peterson. Commissioner Myron.
Thank you. And I talk to so many East County residents who do share that experience of feeling so left out and not prioritized. And I raise this when we have sort of systems and departments, for example, with the Joint Office of Homeless Services. How are we including East County? And they say, oh, we're doing it, but it's not happening. We need to have that intentionality from the chair's office. And I agree with Commissioner Vega-Peterson. Commissioner Stegman has been a phenomenal representative and needs the chair to wrap around and support and elevate those issues in a county way, so that this is to include people, because the needs are very different. I'm District 1. We're in my district now. Welcome. But it is the west side, and there are very different needs in different areas of our county, and we need to be understanding those and bringing those to the forefront. And there are different ways of doing things that work in different areas. We have to be inclusive and engage. And I agree with the concept of the chair's office having a direct liaison, working with the District 4 representatives. So we are a whole county, even though each of us have districts. So ensuring that voice is elevated.
Thank you, Commissioner Myron. Candidate Mayfield.
Sure. I live in East County as well, so why not add another person to the board to represent you all? My first priority with the gun violence issue is we need a gun violence reduction team reinstated, one that's better and improved from the last one. And this whole issue with the police, you guys probably understand, the county chair doesn't have jurisdiction over PPB or the sheriff at all, but we should be acting in a collaborative way to deal with the lack of trust in the police force right now, and it's completely defunct. And so we need to start acting again urgently on reform, engaging community stakeholders, partners, people of color, underrepresented communities who obviously have concerns about policing. My own family, as a Muslim family, was surveilled unlawfully, unconstitutionally by the FBI, and my dad was wrongfully arrested. You guys can look up Brandon Mayfield if you want. And the FBI admitted that it was in part because of our religion as being Muslim. So I know what it's like to be targeted. I know what it's like to be a minority targeted by law enforcement. And as the only candidate who has worked in civil commitment, juvenile dependency, I've done police decertifications, I've helped take badges away from cops. I'm the only one who can say I've done that. But I also come to the table, and I've done criminal defense, I've done criminal appeals. I worked at the Oregon Department of Justice. I come to the table with the ability to actually navigate these complex legal issues, not just as an assistant to those issues, but I would get involved directly, reaching out to the DA as somebody who's worked in the criminal field, reaching out. I've done prison work. I've done habeas work. We need somebody like me who can navigate and collaborate with law enforcement to make this place safer for everyone, so that everyone feels like they can go out and they don't have to worry about gun violence.
Thank you, Candidate Mayfield. Commissioner Stegman.
Thank you, Julio. I hope there's no redheads in the audience, but you all know that East County is the redheaded stepchild of Portland. We have not received the services for decades, and it shows. It shows in the lack of services, the infrastructure, and I've spent my entire life trying to rectify that. One good news is we are getting a flagship library in Gresham, and that is something that I've been passionate and that I've been working on very closely with our library department. The other thing I'll do is I'll create an Office of Reentry Services. So right now, people churn through our criminal justice system, and we have to triage them and get them into jobs, into trades. That ties back into the Construction Diversity Equity Fund that I'm working on. The other thing is that I will continue, we just started a new gun violence behavioral health team that is showing up on site. There's an organization I'm working with called Control Alt Delete Hate PDX. It's Cure Portland. Look it up. It is amazing. They are treating violence as if it was a virus. They are taking a medical, a public health approach to violence. And what they do is that they first detect and interrupt the violence, and then they identify those individuals and they treat the most high risk, and then they mobilize the community to change those norms, to say that is not okay, that is not acceptable. The other thing is that we have something called the business income tax, that a little bit of money goes to the East County cities. And there are some commissioners that I fear that if they are elected to the chair's office, that they will take that money away from the East County cities. I will not.
Thank you, Commissioner Stegman. Okay, folks, that brings us to the end of this session. We will have our next moderator is Candace Avalos. She'll be up here after we take about a 5, maybe 10-minute break, if we can squeeze that in. Can we get a quick round of applause for everybody? All right. Are we still live? Thank you. Thank you all so much.
When you hear desolation call your name, it appears in a voice full cold with pain. When you feel desperation turn its gaze to your woven sheets of gray, slow down, you can't breathe it in. Be still, you can't see again. When the fear, determination I stepped into a dream. But now I barely wanna sing. Well, my voice feels fine, but there's nothing left to say. I tried searching for her face, but lately the clouds are in the way, and her phone works fine. I guess she's got nothing to say. I'm just a songbird in a cage, half screaming, and if she can't see through the haze, what's the point of songs again? Not here is all she'll ever be. One cold year now has turned to 3, and it's 5. It's only ever me. Yeah, it's 5. I can never breathe. I'm just a songbird in a cage, half screaming, and if she can't see through the haze, what's the point of songs again? A songbird, a songbird, a songbird in a cage with his wings clipped to no way out. Blue skies show, and if she'll untie me, I might go, or I might stay and keep circling. Yeah, I might stay and just keep circling. And it's fine, it's only ever me. Yeah, it's fine, I can never breathe. I'm just a songbird in a cage, half screaming, and if she can't see through the haze, what's the point of songs again? A songbird, a songbird, a songbird in a cage with his wings clipped to no way out.
Mike, hey. Oh, hello, everyone. We're getting ready to get started again, so everybody can grab their seat. Oh, thank you for coming out. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Moderation, I have to head out.
All right.
Fasting since yesterday, so I'm going to go.
Pretty good.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. All yours?
God, it's so quiet. And we're missing Khabib.
How do you pronounce your name?
Avraham.
Abraham.
It's Jewish, so sorry about that.
Do not apologize. All right.
Yeah, well, people either get it wrong or get it right.
I'm going to get it right for you. Abraham. Julio, we ready? Okay. Good evening. Welcome back, everybody. My name is Candace Avalos. My pronouns are she, her. I am a Multnomah County PCP for HD 45, and I am excited to introduce you to our Portland City Council Position 2 candidates. The way this will work, same as the last panel, each candidate will have 90 seconds to introduce themselves. Then we have a series of questions, which are the same, so if you were in the room, then you already know them. And then we will take audience questions. You can submit your questions on a 3x5 card. We're going to be walking around with those, and then we'll have some time for that. Any questions? Candidates, are you good to go? Okay.
For my first forum, as well ready as I'll ever be.
Well, then let's start with you. Go ahead and introduce yourself, and also please note the timer right in front of you, and I'll be keeping track of that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Avraham Cox. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm mostly running for city commissioner because I actually want to create some amount of change in this city, because I've lived here for about 4/5 of my entire life, with 4 years outside of it. So I've actually seen some amount out of this city. Admittedly, it's not the most rounded view of the city because I've seen it through tinted lenses, but then again, everyone has. It's only until you're actively out there and looking that you actually notice it. And I am a little scared and a little upset about how it currently is. I'm basically just trying to be the genuine person. I'm not running on a specific platform. I'm not running on any specific issue, because the topic of focusing on one or two issues means that, oh, we'll just get those out of the way and then we'll basically coast along on that success for re-election. Position should not be focusing on one or two issues. It should be focusing on every issue you absolutely possibly can do.
Thank you so much, Candidate Cox. Next up, we'll have Commissioner Dan Ryan, if I can stop the clock. Give me a second, get used to the control. All right, go ahead.
Hi, good evening. My name is Dan Ryan. I'm a current city council member, and I am delighted to be here as a proud Democrat since I could first register to vote in 1980. And I am born and raised in Portland. I'm the youngest of 8. I went to Roosevelt High School, and I am just excited to hopefully have a full term. I was elected in September of 2020, the week of the firestorms. Do you remember that? And so that was my onboarding. And since I've been in office, I said yes to every difficult issue that you could take on. And the mayor just said, here, take these. And I jumped in the deep end. I keep swimming. And we need to get some work done in this city. Clearly, we have some problems when it comes to going from the streets to stable housing. So we need some on-ramps, and that's why I've been suggesting that it's very important that we do assessments for people that are homeless, so we can know actually who's on the ground, why are they homeless. We have no data sets right now, so I made sure that we passed a contract to get that in motion. You got to know where you are to know where you're going. We need, on the two ends of the continuum, is where we have our problems. We don't have on-ramps from stability on the streets into successful housing, and we don't have on-ramps into home ownership. So those are the two areas that I focused on in my 16 months as a city commissioner. I also tackled something that I will continue to tackle when I have a full term, and that's, I don't know how many of you have tried to get a permit to the city of Portland. It's quite a process, and we have 8 bureaus that actually take that on. Most cities have 1. And so just looking at these inefficiencies, calling them out. If you're going to be an elected official today, you better not worry about looking good. You just better be as good as you can every day.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. And next up, candidate McCreary.
Hi, my name is Alana Joy McCrary, and I go by AJ McCrary. I've been in Portland my entire life. I went to Benson High School. I live in Debutante. I am the executive director of Equitable Giving Circle. I am rooted in this community and excited for our city to reconnect with our values and be the city that we claim to be. Portland is in crisis right now, and it's not because of people who are making our city move. It is because our values are not represented in City Hall, and it's time to change that. I've been doing community work pretty loudly the last 2 years through Equitable Giving Circle and Mom Block, Race Talks, and STEPS PDX. And in all of that community work, including feeding over 375 families a week for over 2 years and raising $4 million and investing that into the community, I haven't seen the leaders in Portland City Hall out here doing the work. And we haven't gotten results in the policy that's being thrown at us. And it's time for change. It's time for new energy to be in Portland City Hall, and it's time for the average age of Portlanders' values to be represented in that space. So I'm running because I am a doer, I'm an implementer, I have a track record of getting things done. I am a mom on a mission and excited to really put my foot in getting some work done in the city because we need change now.
Thank you, candidate McCreary. All right, well, we are going to hop into the questions, and I'm going to go the opposite way. So we'll start with you, candidate McCreary. The first question we have is, what do you think will be your approach to solving the biggest problems facing Portland?
Preventative services. I believe that well-resourced communities are safe communities. That means we need to invest in our communities in real time. Currently, that's not happening. We're investing in corporations, we're investing in the police, we're not investing in communities in real time. What that means is we need to be investing in Portland Street Response. We need to be investing in PSEF. We need to be working with communities. All of our city programs should really be leaning into community-based organizations and making sure that we are working with the people ongoing. We cannot have temporary solutions. We have to be thinking about how we're going to solve things now and make sure that we have long-term solutions. The way that I'm going to work as the city commissioner is to bring people to the table and be thoughtful about those preventative services, be thoughtful about the long-term plans, because right now what we're doing is short-term solutions that spend a lot of money but don't get us any real results.
Thank you, candidate McCreary. Next up, Commissioner Ryan.
Could you repeat the question?
Yes, I can. What do you think will be your approach to solving the biggest problems facing Portland?
Yeah, my approach is to be honest about what's going on, first of all. The first step to recovery is to get out of denial. And so what you've seen with me when it comes to the homeless challenge that we have is it's true that it's about poverty. It's very expensive to live in Portland right now. The average salary to really be able to live in market rate housing is up to like $90,000 a year if you're single. That's too much. So we need solutions that are for affordable housing, especially for our essential workers, like 30% of AMI. And then when it comes to our fastest growing population that's vulnerable to being homeless, that's elderly and people on fixed incomes. Shared housing is a great solution for that. But we have to be honest about what's really gripping in our city and our state right now, and that is that we're basically the bottom of the list when it comes to behavioral health and mental health services, the exact bottom. And we have people in our streets that are unfortunately dual diagnosed for over 2 years. They're in late stage addiction, and we live in a city with the fewest amount of recovery centers. It's not a good equation. So we have to be honest about what this is. And you can't just move someone into a single occupancy unit, give them the keys. The worst thing for an addict that's untreated is to put them inside of a single occupancy unit. That's called isolation. I know about recovery. I'm in recovery. It's like you got to have connection, and you got to have resources, and you got to have services. So this whole notion that it's between housing or shelters is ridiculous. It's about services first. And Portland's got to stop being a chief enabler. We got to get honest about this problem, and I'm speaking truth to that power, and I've been doing it since day one. Thanks.
Would you like me to repeat it?
Yes, please.
All right. Let me restart the clock. What do you think will be your approach to solving the biggest problems facing Portland?
That is a very loaded question because to each and every individual person, there's some different catastrophe happening. Like to some people it's schooling, to some people it's police, to some people it's the homeless crisis, to some people it's massive amounts of drug addiction. There is no set solution that everyone is going to accept. What I can do is offer the solution that I believe would be the best solution, but I am not an expert. I do not know everything. I do not claim to know everything. And as far as I can tell, this solution will not satisfy everyone. I just hope it'll satisfy enough people that they'll be happy with that decision. So, to address the homeless issue, I would take on maybe one or two of Dan Ryan's policies, but in general, I would probably move away from his 300 housing occupancy idea, where okay. So what happened was he approved 6 locations to house 300 homeless people at a given time, but that's not enough. I would cut that housing rate to about half, 150, but triple the amount of available locations. So it makes up for the amount. And instead of having services within it, I would put them within like a mile of the public centers where people can get on internet, people can have access to the information that they need, people can have access to job boards, and for people who are disabled that they can, okay.
Thank you.
I
That's
talked
all
too
right.
much.
No worries. Okay, we are going to move to the next question. What are your top 3 priorities and why? And I'm going to start with Commissioner Ryan.
When I got on the city council, I was in a very fascinating meeting about the budget. We were starting to do that thing where everyone's rallying for their bureaus and the horse trading was beginning. I said, stop it. What are our top 3 priorities facing our city? We're in a crisis. We all know what they are. It's homelessness, it's community safety, and the third one is economic recovery. The challenge is we're not going to do much with economic recovery until we take care of the homelessness challenge and also the fact that we have the fastest growing organized crime and crime rates in the country. Yes, gun violence is spiking all over the nation, but it's spiking here at double and triple rates. And so we have to be honest again about that. And so that's why I'm proud that we have a first responder system that's now being integrated. It should never have been a competition between Portland Street Response versus the police. We need both of them. The police admit, the fire admit that we need we need people that can come, that are trauma informed, without arms, and that's for many of the first responders. That's what we need. But we need to integrate it. We have to include the people on the ground, the first responders, to help build that together. It can't be top-down. It's always got to be bottom-up and top-down coming together. And so that's my style, is to make sure that we get comfortable with the uncomfortable, that we have tension in the room, and that we actually have metrics to figure out where we are and where we're going. That's the approach I've had in my entire 37-year career in the nonprofit sector, getting population results, and I'm bringing that refreshing, I hope, style to City Council.
Thank you. Next, we will go to Candidate Cox. And the question is, what are your top 3 priorities and why?
Top 3 priorities vary upon what is on my mind because I'm shifting through like 5, 6 constantly. But the top 3 priorities right now at this given time is basically what is happening. We are on the verge of We are on the verge of people losing their jobs en masse because we have inflation rates spiking. So the way they rein in those inflation spikes is by increasing the amount of rate that money can, or decreasing the amount of money that can be borrowed. The second thing is school budgets are being cut ridiculously, like constantly, over and over. And most people don't know that fact. I did not know that fact until I met the PTA. And the third is obviously homelessness, but homelessness is a mixture of multiple issues put together. Some of it is schooling, some of it is police, some of it is drug addiction, some of it are just people that are down on their luck, people that haven't touched drugs a day in their life, that just were unfortunate enough to end up in this situation. And homelessness has obviously spiked since 2019 because There were like 5,500 people in 2019. I'm certain there's like 7,000, 8,000 nowadays after 2020 and 2021 and 2022, as it's going on right now. So really, I try to prioritize those three things, but there are other things that I also worry about, like affordable internet, affordable healthcare, affordable everything, basically.
Thank you. Candidate McCreary, what are your top 3 priorities and why?
My top 3 priorities are housing, public safety, and climate action. And the reason those are the 3 things that are priority the most to me are because housing is such a loud crisis, and it is affecting everybody, and it is growing. We have been having this crisis grow for the last couple decades, and if we don't start addressing this, then we are not ever going to be able to really get in front of it. Public safety, I think about that a lot as just a resident, as also as a mom. We need to have a safe community where people are thriving and don't feel threatened. And climate action, because it's a real crisis right now. It's no longer a future threat. I know that these are things that we can tackle, and these are things that Portland should be championing. We've talked about it for a long time, and now it's time to really get the needle moving and make sure that things are actually happening, both in the immediate and the long term. Those are my top 3 priorities, but there's definitely lots of other things that I would like to work on that can definitely be intertwined in some of these direct actions.
Thank you. All right, our last question before we do some Q&A is, this is a nonpartisan position, but given that you are a Democrat, explain to us how that shows up in your values, in what you think our city's problems are, and how you intend to solve them as a city commissioner. And this time I'll start with candidate McCreary.
As a Democrat, you'll see that I'm very progressive and liberal and thinking about the future. And that shows up a lot in my work through Equitable Giving Circle, Mom Block, Race Talks, and STEPS PDX. You'll see that in my work, I am really centering community. I'm really centering how are we going to move forward and what solutions do we have in the immediate and how we can implement them and make things better for people. You see that in real time, the way that I work and I organize, and I want to bring that to City Hall. I want to bring the values that I have and have been showing up for in community for a long time into this space and help make sure that we are moving forward. We are the city that is actively progressive and being a leader in climate change, a leader in economic development, a leader in housing, a leader in public safety, a leader in a place where everybody thrives. Right now that's not happening, and I am excited to be that new energy, that fresh take to help us get there.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Commissioner Ryan next, and I'll repeat it. This is a nonpartisan position, but given that you are a Democrat, explain to us how that shows up in your values, in what you think the city's problems are, and how you intend to solve them as city commissioner.
I'm reminiscing here. I knew as a different kid when Watergate hearings, I know I'm speaking to a few people in the audience, I was a little kid and I watched them and I thought, God, these people are lying. And then in 1972, I watched the conventions and I just thought the Democratic convention was so much more fun than the Republican convention. And so I thought, and we had a McGovern sign up, which I found out that then I was a Democrat and our family was a Democrat. So, and then throughout my life, I always vote Democrat because it's kind of basic Supreme Court picks. I mean, come on, that's what it's about. So on the presidential level, but I'm a Democrat because it's always been about service for me. I was raised to be of service. I was raised a liberal Catholic, hello Kennedy family, and so our family was just inspired to always give and to be of service. And then my mom always said, you have, it's 24 hours in a day. 8 hours is go to school or work. 8 hours you should try to get some sleep, but the other 8 is your opportunity to be of service to your community. So just my whole life has been about service, and I every day show up in this job to be of service to my hometown.
Thank you. Candidate Cox, this is a nonpartisan position, but given that you're a Democrat, explain to us how that shows up in your values, in what you think the city's problems are, and how you intend to solve them as city commissioner.
Okay, so most people see Democrats as either moderate or liberal. I personally view myself as in between those two options. I am not some moderate that basically is part Republican, part Democrat, nor am I some ultra liberal that believes this, that, this and that, this and that. like that. And I believe in things like universal basic income or basic health care, but I also believe in American first jobs and American first products. And I grew up with a bunch of Republican influences. So my father, my grandfather, a couple of my uncles, one of my aunt, they voted either Republican or third party depending on who you're talking to. And I cannot say for a fact that my democratic values will match up to anyone else, but I do believe in a lot of democratic values, like raising the minimum wage, universal basic income, free health care, basically. And those are all very important talking points. And what was the second part of the question?
How do you intend to solve them as city commissioner?
How do I intend to solve them as city commissioner? The problem is that most of those problems cannot be solved as commissioner. They got to be at a higher level, like the state governor or the U.S. president, which obviously cannot be solved at this point in time. But I would advocate for them strongly. Try to talk to people about it. Try to get information out about it.
Thank you. Okay, we are a little ahead of schedule, which is great, so we can try and get through as many of these Q&A questions. So we'll go ahead and start off with this one. Why are you the climate justice candidate, and how specifically will you advocate for bold climate action? We'll start with candidate Cox.
Certainly. Climate is extremely important. Most people that destroy the climate obviously have so much wealth that they could fix what they're doing quite easily, but they simply choose not to. Like, here's the fact. Without the climate, none of us would be alive. None of us would have ever existed. Our parents would not have existed, period. And as the species that has the biggest impact on the climate, we have a job to actually keep it going. And we cannot do that, apparently, because none of us are informed enough, and the people that have enough information and enough resources to influence the climate aren't doing squat about it. They only do anything if it's in their own personal financial interest, like whale oil lanterns. People used whale oil lanterns until they found something that was cheaper, petroleum, which is financially backed. So unfortunately, in order to influence people to argue about the climate, you actually have to put some kind of financial dollar, which is ridiculous. You shouldn't have to do that, but clearly money is the biggest motivator, because these people think, we're not going to be around, and chances are our children aren't going to be around when the climate finally blows up, so we don't have to care at all.
Thank you, candidate Cox. Commissioner Ryan, why are you the climate justice candidate, and how specifically will you advocate for bold climate action?
Yeah, I had an opportunity to show you who I was when it comes to the climate. I oversee the Bureau of Development Services, and we had a decision to make. And all the attorneys and all the codes said that I was supposed to allow Zenith to continue to build their infrastructure for fossil fuels out at the Linton facility. I partnered with the Government of Tribal Affairs. I believe our Native American community should be lifted and should be the leaders of climate justice. And we decided that we were going to reject that, Lux, and that we were going to fight this in the courts. This is an issue, like all issues. I've been around a while with gay, lesbian issues, with HIV issues, whatever. I've always been there. And every time you have to bring things usually to the courts. And that's where you fight justice issues, and that's where that should be landed. So that's what we agreed to, and that's where we moved it. In terms of walking our talk, the city needs to actually make investments in our own fleet. We're asking people to convert to non-fossil fuels. Well, if we mean that, then our fleet needs to be first. And I've said that in several meetings, and that's where we have to start. We have a big fleet at the city of Portland. Our best days are yet to come, and I'm going to always listen to the Native American community and my many, many, many nephews and nieces who now are having children. And I look at them and I know exactly what I'm supposed to do. Thanks.
Thank you. Candidate McCreary, why are you the climate justice candidate, and how specifically will you advocate for bold climate action?
I love this question. First of all, if you look at my work with Equitable Giving Circle, you're going to see that I'm already doing climate justice work. We buy food from local BIPOC farmers and give it away to BIPOC families. And buying food locally is a really great way to be intentionally lowering fossil fuels and doing climate action in real time. I really do believe that our environment is our first home, and we live in a rainforest, and so it's important that we are protecting this space here in Portland. As a candidate, as a city commissioner, I will champion safe rivers, clean rivers. That's something that is not talked about a lot here in Portland. Also going to champion no more highway expansion. This is a really hot topic, but expanding the freeways is going to create more pollution. I actually live next door to I-84, so if you ever need a highway report, hit me up. I can let you know what's going on. It's really dusty. It's really dirty. My bedroom looks out onto I-84, and it is filthy. I clean my windows probably more than anybody could even imagine. And so I know firsthand that freeways, we've got to really get a cap on that. Also going to really champion public transit. Fairless Square, that is a way that we can really champion climate change in real time, incentivize riders, and be walking the talk. At one point, we were climate change leaders, in particular because of our transit, and we've sort of fallen by the wayside of that. And so there's a lot of work that we can do around that. And lastly, champion PSEF. The Portland Clean Energy Fund is an incredible, first of its kind policy, and we need more of it. We need to really get behind it and really, really power that up, because we're going to see a lot of change in that.
All right. The next question is near and dear to my heart. Tell us your position on the changes proposed by the Charter Review Commission. And I will start with candidate McCreary.
I think that the charter reform is critical. I'm part of the community outreach for the charter reform, and I think it is important that we are moving forward with our local government. Expanding how many people are on city council, voting folks in by districts is really helpful. We do need a city manager. I think that is critical. We also need to be changing the way that our city councilors are working with the bureaus directly. So everything that the charter has moved forward, I am championing behind it. I am rooting for it. I am trying to tell folks about it, and excited for these changes to happen to modernize our city, because it is beyond time. So I'm really grateful for all of that hard work that has happened to just even get us to this point. Can't wait for it to be finalized.
Thank you. Commissioner Ryan, tell us your position on the changes proposed by the Charter Review Commission.
Yes, Charter Review Chair Candace Avalos, thank you for that question. I look forward to you bringing that report to the City Council so we can actually see all the details, because you guys have worked your tails off, and our job is to actually spend some time looking at all the details. We haven't received those yet, so I look forward to that. What my opinions on this have been solid for a while. I was one of like two people, or I think 25% of the population, that voted for this back in the early 2000s. The reason I voted for it then is because it's really obvious that about 2 centuries ago, most cities in our country decided that we needed a real mayor, an executive, a legislative branch, and then a city manager. So yes, I'm all for that. What I want to really make clear is, yes, I think it's important that we have geographic distribution. I first of all always want to promote the fact that we have a small donor program so campaign finance reform is the fundamental thing that you're supposed to do first and foremost, and I'm glad that we have that in Portland. But what really needs to be handled, and one reason I definitely need to be on city council for a full term, is because I have 32 years of executive experience looking at systems change and looking at organizational development. We have 33 bureaus at the City of Portland. We have 10 offices that pretend they're bureaus. We have so much duplication, we have so many silos. And trust me, I know, in my first 16 months, I've dared to actually move work and do system change work. And the egos that you have to go through to get anything done with all of these bloated salaries of all of these bureaus is ridiculous. So we got to have the chutzpah to make sure that we do real change, and it's below the iceberg. It's not just moving deck chairs around on how people get elected.
All right. Candidate Cox, tell us your position on the changes proposed by the Charter Review Commission.
Just to remind myself, this is regarding if we should move from a commission-based system to a more traditional state and national level, how it's usually done. Okay, so if people want to do that, I am not opposed to it. It is not a bad system in place. But in my own personal mind and opinion, if you have too many voices speaking at the same time, it's chaos, like in Congress or the Senate. Personally, I would be all for changing this current commission And instead of having 5, you have like 13 position members. And then you split decisions up based on who is most ideal for that position. So it's a mixture between having multiple elected positions, which allow more people, okay, so the current government is ideal for maybe a city half the size of what Portland is. Clearly overworked, not enough people not enough heads thinking, not enough people on the ground. Doubling or even tripling the amount of commissioner positions would allow for more heads to be clear and would allow for less infighting among people because some people have formed groups around police reform or homeless action, and some people are for this and some people are for that, but put in more people. Don't put in too many people, however. That's problematic, too many voices.
Thank you. We have time for one more question. Our last question is, how will you prioritize racial justice in your decision-making? And I will start with Commissioner Ryan.
I think it's very important that you always include the community in every decision, and that means going out and getting voices that are heard. I think that the city's done a decent job of definitely focusing on racial equity, but I think we sometimes look inside too much where we should be looking out. So we should have metrics that look at population results, and that's what really matters. And so when I was on the school board and when I was doing schools work, it was more important to look at the outcomes that we were getting from our African American community, our Latino community, and what I was able to accomplish there was getting population results so that we saw an increase in graduation rates from African American communities, from Latino communities, from Pacific Islander communities, and I think too often the city is only navel gazing on this issue, where we need to have probably less trainings and more focus on actual outcomes that are in the city itself. I'm talking to so many people that want us to focus on building generational wealth, and so I'm putting my attention on land banking to providing opportunities for home ownership, and I'm working with entrepreneurs because that's how you build generational wealth. It's an entrepreneurism and it's getting home ownership, and that's when we're really going to see racial justice. We're going to build real capital in my hometown, and that's what I will continue to focus on in my full term.
Okay. Thank you. Candidate Cox, how will you prioritize racial justice in your decision making?
Okay, so I'm going to be honest. I am not the most well informed about this, and I might get some booing about this, but here's the thing. I do not care what race you are. I do not care what gender orientation you are or what sex you're attracted to. You are human. So every human should have equal opportunity to do what they can do best. And I do not care where you come from. I do not care what your ancestry is. If you're not a criminal, I just do not care because, quite frankly, humans are the closest genetic species on the planet. If you took 2 random dogs, they'd have more genetic diversity than humans would. And the fact that for most of history, racism has been such a big part of humanity has been incredibly stupid. We should be equalizing opportunities for everyone. Banks on average will provide only 1/4 of the loans to black people that they would to white people, which is, again, ridiculous. Like, I'm part Native American, but I look white. I am white enough to blend in with people from the 1600s. That is how white I look. And again, it's just a ridiculous thought to me.
Thank you, Candidate Cox. Candidate McCreary, how will you prioritize racial justice in your decision making?
Well, as an anti-racist educator and somebody who, helped found a reparations organization, I do racial justice work every single day. It's something that is really important to me. It's near and dear to my heart. Right now, things that we can be doing is prioritize some of the programmings that are helping Black and brown communities in Portland. So PISA, Portland Street Response, really building out our grant opportunities for home ownership as well as for small businesses, and particularly prioritizing actual small businesses. It's something that is always talked about and then it doesn't happen in real time. when we're talking about racial equity, we need people who actually have the experience, not somebody who's taken a class for a weekend, not somebody who's read 1 or 2 books, but we need people who are devoted to this work and who have a real experience. I wouldn't be doing reparations work at the scale that I do if I didn't understand this work and I wasn't a champion in this space. This is something that we do need to prioritize if we're going to move forward as a city, as a larger community, and I have the background and the skill set to do that. You already see that in my track record and the work that I do, and so me being your next city commissioner for seat number 2, you're going to see that in a much louder way, and it's also going to be a space where I can help bring more people along. Because part of it too, when we're talking about these conversations, it's not just about the class, but it's can you get people on board? Can you train people? Can you talk about it in real time? Can you connect the dots in real time? We don't have enough people in that space yet who have those skills.
Thank you.
And I do.
Thank you. I want to make just a quick announcement to say that candidate Stephen Cox had a family emergency and wasn't able to be here, just so the audience is aware. We are out of time, unfortunately, but let's go ahead and give them a round of applause.
No close.
Thank you, candidates. We are going to take a couple-minute break, and then we'll get into the last panel of the evening.
Go ye prophet, Push me out to sea, baby. It's the best thing for us both. I'll be happy out there, baby. Fish below and stars above. And you'll be happier without me. Push me out to sea, baby. There's nothing left for you to do. We did our best with our love, baby, but it brought us down so low. And you'll be happier without me. Now wash up on your beach one morning, strange shell lying on the shore. You put me to your ear and I'll whisper, what today I just can't say. Then you throw me back into the water and forget you ever found me, and forget you ever lost me. Push me out to sea, baby. It's the best thing for us both. I'll be happy out there, baby. Fish below and stars above. And you'll be happier without me. the stars guide us again. Your end, perfect in mine. That laugh, those eyes are all that I want. Your heart right next to mine. Staying young has never felt so easy. Growing old has never felt so right. May I have this dance over and over again, and we'll thank God we're blessed with the love that lasts. May I have this dance again. This life, this home, babe, yeah, we did good. Our love feels just right. Staying young has never felt so easy. Growing old has never felt so right. May I have this dance over and over again, and we'll thank God we're blessed with the love that lasts. May I have this dance again, oh again, and again.
Folks, we are about to get started. If you could please come back to your seats. Thank you.
So yeah, you introduce yourself and then
Great.
they can introduce themselves. But let me get Joanne up here.
He seems like a nice guy.
Totally. Director's up there.
Were you here to watch the?
He's going to read his arm. Yeah, I saw it already. And then drop it when we go live.
Wonderful. Okay, I'm
Hey, good
sure
to see
he's
you.
the best candidate for that.
I will.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. Good evening. Lively crowd. Let's hear it. 9 p.m. political debate, local politics at its finest. Good evening, all of you beautiful people, residents of Portland. My name is Cameron Witten. My pronouns are he, him. All pronouns greatly appreciated and accepted. And we are here for our final debate of the evening. And we have for us today, Portland City Council position number 3. We have 3 amazing candidates who are all here to hear from. Y'all already know this is the 3rd one, so we know we've got some prepared questions. But if you have any questions, please write them down, bring them to me. I will judge them, and I'll figure out what we're going to talk about tonight. And so with that, we're going to start off with our candidate introductions. We'll start off with Kim Cash. You have 90 seconds.
Hi, I'm Kim Cash, and I'm running for Commissioner number 3. And I'm the only candidate up here that's not sponsored by big corporations. I'm a local hometown girl born and raised in Portland. I love this city, and that's why I'm running. I want to give all Portlanders a voice. I have 4 main agenda items. Number 1 is safety. The city council cut funding for the police, and we've had nothing but problems in the city ever since. Number 2 is affordable housing. It's as important as homeless housing because I want to keep people in their homes. When we just give developers big breaks to build, they come in and they knock down the homes and then they build unaffordable condos. We're not helping anyone but the big corporations and big developers. So I want to reduce regulations so Portlanders can rent the space that already exists. Number 3, I want the economy. I want to bring back Fairless Square and safety teams on mass transit. When you have those things that have worked for 37 years in Portland that the city council cut, then you will have people come downtown, which will revitalize the downtown area and Portland overall. Number 4, I care about the climate crisis. I want to have a coalition of community gardens. I have one myself. I also want to have free food pantries like little libraries. And I want to revitalize Portland. So vote Kim Cash because I care about you and not the big corporations.
Let's hear it for Kim Cash. Next we, thank you, love the enthusiasm. Next we have Vadim Mozirsky.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming here. I appreciate your time. Thank you, Multnomah Democrats. My name is Vadim Mozirsky, and I'm running for Portland City Council on a platform of bold vision, accountability, inclusiveness, and I think very importantly right now, pragmatic rather than dogmatic solution to our problems. We, as a city, have been suffering lately. And that suffering is not because of our fault. It's the fault of our city government, who is very divisive and who have caused the very crises that we're facing. We have a crisis of homelessness, a humanitarian crisis on our streets. We have a crisis of gun violence and crime in general. We have a housing crisis that's now 7 years strong, and in fact, it was extended for 3 years because our city council believes the housing crisis will continue in the future. And we have a crisis in people being able to actually afford to live here in Portland. Our city council, because of its divisiveness, has not been able to address these issues. I'm here to bring people together to actually address these issues united. I'm a firm believer in President Obama's vision that liberalism is having bold vision along with practical steps to get there. My opponents, unfortunately, have vision, but impractical steps to get there. And so I think it's very necessary to bring people together to actually address those problems that we're facing. I think it's necessary to have people with experience in addressing the crises that we're facing. And I have that experience. I've been working in Portland for a long time. Being on city council is not something you want to learn
Let's
as
hear
you
for
go
Vadim.
along. Thank you.
And finally, we have Joanne Hardesty.
Good evening. I want to thank Multnomah Democrats for inviting us here this evening. My name is Joanne Hardesty, and I've had the privilege of serving you on the Portland City Council for the last 3 years and 3 months. What have I accomplished in that time? I developed Portland Street Response, the very first new response to 911 in 150 years. And I did that because I believe that people shouldn't die who are suffering mental health issues when someone calls 911 for help. In addition to that, I got voters by 82% margin to support a new type of police oversight board that would be led by community. And in addition to that, I continue to work to make sure that we leave no Portlander behind. We are in a housing crisis, primarily because it costs too darn much to live in the city of Portland. And we have to address the fact that income inequality has not kept up with the cost of living in this city. I am running for re-election to continue the systemic changes that I have begun. And let me just say, the problems of houselessness didn't start 3 years ago, and they won't be fixed in 3 years. But what you need is a leader who understands how to work in community to find solutions that benefit all community members. Thank you.
Let's hear for Joanne. All right, we have 3 questions tonight. We'll start off with Kim. What do you think will be your approach to solving the city's biggest problems?
Well, I already mentioned what my 4 agenda items are. One of those was safety and sanitation. I just wanted to say that last year, Oregon had a $1.9 billion surplus, and yet the city council cut funding to the police. And then we had the most homicides in Portland's history ever, and the most traffic fatalities in Portland's history ever. So when you cut the funds, you aren't helping anything. What you're doing is destroying the city. What I want to do is give more funding, as I said, to the police. I'd also like more funding to Portland Street Response so they could be more effective too. Right now, they can only go on very low-level calls, and it's not the help that it would be. I have a degree in psychology. I think we need a holistic approach to help Portland, and I would have the more funding for the police. I'd have a social worker, a therapist to go on ride-alongs. I'd have resources for the police to back up on. We need to have safety first, and then, of course, sanitation. I believe in, we used to have street sweepers and street safety teams. I'd bring those back. The city council cut those too. We had programs that worked for decades, and they cut them when we had a windfall of money. And I know the 1.9 was for all of Oregon, but we get the mass majority of that because Portland has the most people. With the most population, you get the most money. So why are we cutting programs that help Portland and are now destroying the city? I've lived here for my entire life. The city has been getting worse and worse, and especially the last 5 years. I'm saying, let's bring back the programs that worked
Kim.
and make it safe again.
Thank you. Next, we have Vadim. What do you think will be your approach to solving the biggest problems facing the city?
My approach continues to be to bring communities together. If you look at my endorsements, I have the endorsements not only of business associations and business communities, but also of labor. I have endorsers from all around Portland, from immigrant communities. I have endorsers from East Portland, West Portland, and that what they say is they are searching for an individual that can bring people together and provide practical solutions to our problems. Right now, we have an incumbent that has overseen Portland spiraling into chaos because of divisive politics, pitting communities against one another. We have another individual running for office who has self-styled himself as a cheerleader for the police union and whose solution for everything from crime to global warming apparently is to put people in jail and lock them up. That is 2 extremes, and we're always going between extremes, and that divisive politics will not work for the future of Portland. We have to bring people together. And I am doing just that in my experience before and working on committees and working private life. President of Public Safety Action Coalition, working with neighborhood associations, people that live in Portland, businesses and business associations to get things done here in Portland. That is my experience. That is what I bring to the table, inclusiveness rather than divisiveness, and I think that's going to be very important. Today, I received the endorsement of Mingus Maps, who thinks that I will be the best person to actually bring Portland communities together, and I value that endorsement. I value his judgment, and I value what he's done in City Council so far in having practical, pragmatic solutions. I look forward to working with him.
Thank you, Vadim. Finally, we have Joanne. What do you think will be your approach to solving the biggest problems facing the city?
I will continue to center community first. I believe that people most impacted by the problem also have the solutions to those problems. As an example, I worked with Mount Scott, our leader neighborhoods, to reduce gun violence by 62%. Not because I came in with the answer, but because I listened to community and we worked together to pilot a project. The results show that they're very promising when you listen to community as the experts of what they need in their community. In addition to that, I will continue to make sure that we have accountability measures in place to ensure that we have a just, fair city that works for all of us. In addition, I will make sure that we continue to implement the Independent Police Oversight Board. They have, in their fourth meeting now, and they have another 14 months before they will be giving us a policy. Well, I'll also make sure that the civilian training dean values civilian expertise as much as they value police expertise, so that as we're training community police officers, we will make sure that they are responsive to community needs and not what they think the community needs. I'm done.
Thank you. All right, go ahead, we have a couple extra seconds. For the second question, we'll start with Vadim. What are your top 3 priorities and why?
The top 3 priorities, I think, are obvious for everybody in the room. We need to address the gun violence and the rising crime in Portland, which is the highest it's ever been in the city. We need to address the homeless crisis that we have, people living and dying in our streets and not receiving the services that they need. And then we need to revitalize Portland. We need to bring businesses back. They're leaving right now. We need to ensure that people can walk in neighborhoods and shop and spend and enjoy their neighborhoods, enjoy traveling around Portland, which is not happening. And part of that is, cleaning up the trash and cleaning up the graffiti, pretty simple things. So things that unfortunately are not being done right now. For cleaning up the trash and the graffiti, our system of government is broken here in Portland. And we need to make it better so the livability can increase here. We need to ensure that the bureaus are working together, which they're not, to clean up the trash, and that we're working with the county and other entities to make sure that that actually happens. Graffiti is within Office of Civic Life, which the incumbent currently is in charge of, but we see graffiti throughout Portland, and we can do better. Hundreds of thousands of dollars are being spent, but we can't see the improvements, can we? We need to ensure that lives are not lost due to gun violence. And that entails various things. That entails not only having enough police to respond to 911 calls so we don't have victimization out there, but we also need to fund communities so they can have intervention specialists. And we need to take guns off the streets by working with the police, working with sheriff's office, working with state troopers to take illegal guns off the streets.
Thank you. Next we have Joanne. What are your top 3 priorities and why?
Top 3 priorities are housing and houselessness, community safety, and transportation, multimodal transportation improvements. And why? Housing and houselessness is a huge issue. We need to land bank land that the city currently owns rather than selling it to private developers and begging for a public interest. We need to make sure that we are allowing for a diversity of housing options while we wait to build housing people can afford to live in. As far as community safety is concerned, what we know is that we need a whole lot of community investments. Police are just one piece of the community safety puzzle, and we know police by themselves do not solve crime. If without community, police do not solve crime. We need to make sure that the newly launched health program at the Fire Bureau continues to provide community health care on the street that helps people who are currently houseless get additional resources. As you know, today we just transferred 82nd Avenue to the city of Portland. And we got $185 million, and I am committed to making sure that the community leads the redevelopment on 82nd Avenue, and we don't do it like traditional government does, which is, again, allow private developers to actually reap huge economic benefits at the expense of the people who are there today.
Thank you, Joanne. Finally, we have Kim. What are your top 3 priorities and why?
As I said, safety and affordable housing and homeless housing, and also the economy. Last year, over 50 people in the Portland Police Bureau quit all at once because they felt so unsupported by our city council. So they quit all at once, and instead of giving more funding to the police, what happened was they were cut by over $15 million. So what I would do is have this holistic approach where I would have a whole team of social workers, therapists, police officers, better training for Portland street response, as I said. And the affordable housing is a critical thing because our young people can't even afford to live in Portland. Portland is becoming a city only for the rich. I've lived here for decades, my entire life, and it used to be a city for people that just love the outdoors and love to hike. And I want to bring Portland back to what it was. So I want people to vote for me because of those things, because I haven't seen good leadership in this city for a very long time, but especially the last 4 years. So safety, economy, and affordable housing are critical things, and I have a lot of plans to work on all of those issues. So thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Our final question prepared. If anyone has any questions from the audience, feel free to write them down, bring them over. I don't bite unless you ask me to. So where do we? See, you're asking questions I don't have answers to. We have someone who's looking for some index cards. It now became the Cameron comedy era. You shouldn't have invited me. I do this every time. We need some index cards. There we go. Neighbors in action. Okay, so we're going to start off with Joanne. This is a nonpartisan position, but given that you're a Democrat, explain to us how that shows up in your values and what you think our city's problems are and how you intend to solve them as city commissioner.
How much time I got for that one?
90 seconds. Let me reset it a second. You bought yourself some time, so reset. 90 seconds.
So, as someone who actually has lived democratic principles my whole life, principles of equity, inclusion, not judging people based on how much money they make, but believing that all people have a right to have a decent standard of living, and that government should work for all of us, especially people who work for a living and who have built this country. So because I'm a Democrat, and because I am who I am, I'm a community organizer with over 30 years of community organizing experience. I come to City Hall as a community organizer, which means any policy, whether it was facial recognition, the first in the nation for a private ban on facial recognition, as well as public ban, whether it was the Portland Clean Energy Fund, every single public policy I move forward comes from the ground up. Because what I know is that when you bring the people with you and it's the people's policy, don't have a lot of problem getting the 3 at City Council.
You still got 20 seconds left. You good?
And by the way, I've been endorsed by both of our senators and by Barbara Roberts and a whole lot of state legislators and state senators. And it's not because I don't get along with people, it's because I actually have worked at every level of government and I know how to connect the dots and make things happen. And so re-electing me means that we will continue to make progress at joanneforportland.com. Thank you.
All right. Kim.
Go
ahead.
Okay, I've been a volunteer all my life in Portland. I am now a volunteer for an international corporation, and I have worked hard for Portland. I've been a coach for youth. I have worked with kids at risk and been an advocate for kids since I was young. I was a big sister in high school, and so I have worked my whole life to help Portland be a better place. And I grew up in a family with 9 kids, and my grandma lived with us, so I grew up in a family with 12 people. I worked in law for 30 years. So I also have a lot of experience on teams, and I want to have a chance to bring Portland back to what it was. I just want you to know that the city commissioners not long ago tried to sell off part of Mount Tabor Park. They did it in a back room deal, and it was the neighborhood associations that brought that to light and stopped it. Then soon after, one of our city commissioners tried to get rid of the neighborhood associations. There's a reason I'm running for city commissioner, and it's not because I am sponsored by big corporations or people. None of those people have even asked me what I believe. I'm running because I love this city, and I want it to be a great city and for everyone to grow up and have the opportunities I had. And those have all been diminished. And the last 2 years, more than ever, there's been, so many people that have been suffering in the last 2 years. I haven't seen our city doing any type of leadership to really help us. We've had people in crisis. I'd like to offer transitional health care.
Thank you.
Okay.
And finally, we have Vadim.
So Democrats, for me, have always stood up for marginalized communities throughout the United States, people that have been oppressed, people that have not had the means to have their voices heard in certain halls of power, and I will continue to do that. One of the proudest moments of my life was working for the Department of Health and Human Services when Obamacare was passed, and working on some of the implementation issues around there, specifically with Medicare, bringing health care to people that have not had it before, bringing health care to individuals who were poor and have not had ability to access health care, which is generational. When you don't have access to health care, your children suffer. When you can't have the health care you need in order to work, your family suffers down the road. And I was proud to work on that. And a part of it is also my own story. My family and I immigrated here from the former Ukraine, the former Soviet Union. We were immigrants here escaping oppression in that country. We came here with just a few suitcases. And we worked hard, and I went to public schools, public universities, and a public law school, striving for that American dream. I'm here to help other people attain that American dream, people that have had a hard time in their lives, people that are trying to succeed, people that are trying to build generational wealth for themselves, for their children, people that are struggling to go to college and be able to have a good life for their children. That's what I'm fighting for, the things that my parents fought for me, and the thing that I believe all Democrats should be fighting for. That's why the unions represent me, because I'm fighting for working families. Thank you.
Thank you, Vadim. That ends all of our, over here. Thank you. And if anyone else has any questions, I'm right over here. Yeah, walk on down. Y'all know how to use feet. Good. All right, so we do have a few extra minutes for audience questions, so don't be shy. And we're gonna start off with Kim. Will you prioritize climate action on city council, and how?
Of course. I used to blog as the Green Queen. My mom raised me to, in a big family. She could make a dinner for 12 people with one can of tuna fish. And so I've blogged as a Green Queen with Eco Women, and I've been talking with Oregon Food Bank about a coalition of community gardens. I've been talking with Cultivate Initiatives, who works, to go around to the homeless and have mobile showers and laundry services, and all these things that I've been working on are intermingled with climate issues. And I would just ask that people look at why we're doing what we're doing. Why are people running? Who's passionate? Who wants to bring Portland back to what it was when it was the city of the environmentalists? If people come here to Lewis and Clark to be environmental attorneys. It used to be a city that was totally for climate initiatives. And so I have been backing those, even for no money. When you blog, you don't get paid for it. And I have a community garden out in front of my yard. I'd like to have a coalition of community gardens. I have a map on Google Maps with all the community gardens. I've been talking with them, trying to come up with like a free food pantry, like our little libraries. And I believe in reusing and reducing. I just am a huge supporter of giving tax credits to people that ride their bikes to work. And if you run to work, I used to run to work every day, or you bike to work, or you walk.
Next we have Vadim.
So I'm probably the only candidate that has been talking about this throughout the campaign. We're not meeting our 2030 climate action goals here in Portland. We're not meeting our 2050 climate action goals in Portland. We have PCEF, which is distributing over $180 million, I believe, at this point, to entities that are trying to work on it. But there's no actual goals, and there's no accountability for how we're going to meet those goals. What we need in this city is bold vision. People move here because they want to live in a green city. A lot of you probably want to see a future where our kids are walking to school, where we're working close by and we're taking public transportation to get there, where our fleet in the city is electrified, so we have public transportation buses and so forth that are also electric. But it's hard to tell exactly what is being done, and it's hard to tell exactly when we'll get it done. What I want is transparency. What I want is also to bring businesses that are green businesses to Portland. Part of it is how do we get to where we need to go right now in the next 10, 20 years? Part of it is what is that future for Portland? Let's be a city where green businesses come here. Let's incentivize businesses to move here. So now businesses are leaving Portland because of the various things that are going on right now, the crises that we're facing. Let's replenish those businesses with ones that'll build the future. They'll have good paying jobs for people that live here, but also that vision of a greener Portland.
Thank you, Vadim. Joanne.
So for me, when I helped create the Portland Clean Energy Fund that was led by community-based organizations, led by people of color, it was intentional to make sure that we did not leave those communities behind when we talked about climate mitigation. In addition, that is why Sunrise Movement, PDX, has endorsed me. Our Revolution Oregon has endorsed me. Bernie PDX, SEIU, both 49 and 503. When you think about the people who've endorsed me, those are the ones that are committed to a green economy and are committed to making sure that we actually walk our talk rather than just like pontificate about how we're green. In addition to that, I actually have been making sure that as we make transportation improvements, we're making sure that there are multimodal transportation options so that we're just not expanding freeways. And I can tell you that the I-5 bridge project will have light rail on it, and it would not have had not been for a leader like me, making sure that there are multimodal transit options for people who need it most. And one of the important things about that project is making sure that we're not exacerbating the costs for people who have been pushed out to the edges of our city. We need a exemption program and then a low-income program, but I'm committed to an exemption program. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next question. We'll start with Vadim. This is regarding the housing crisis. What do you think of the measures proposed by People for Portland?
So the measure proposed for People from Portland is to spend 75% of the tax money we're receiving right now on short-term shelter space. And let me just say this. You just have to walk around this neighborhood to see homeless people suffering. You have to walk around this neighborhood and you'll see syringes. You can walk around this neighborhood and see people that are in dire straits because of mental health issues and crises that they're facing. We're not doing enough about that right now. This morning, I was in Old Town, where people in Old Town, their neighborhood association, some business members, people that live there, got together and in front of various news medias talked about the plight that they're seeing there, talked about the issues which all of you in this room know, people suffering in our streets, and also, unfortunately, sometimes people in the neighborhoods being assaulted, being hurt because of some of those issues as well. They're not hearing from their elected leaders what the solution is, and they're trying to come with the solution on their own. I was the only person that was either running or on city council there because our city council is not listening. They're not listening to people that are working with the homeless community, trying to find avenues for them. Scott Kermit from Blanchet House asked for help. He had a plan. The city offered funding in November. Only about a couple of weeks ago has that funding become available, and that funding expires in about another month. Once again, our city's not listening, and we need to do better and find people short-term housing so that they can get services.
Thank you. Next, we have Joanne.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Regarding the housing crisis, what do you think of the measures proposed by People for Portland?
I think it's cruel, inhumane, and unjust and unfair.
All right. Good answer. All right. Let's see. Finally, we have Kim.
Well, I think you can just tell from the measures that People for Portland are just bringing forward. It's because Portlanders are so disheartened. They're so disappointed in our leadership. And I am on our neighborhood association. I'm on the board, and I'm on the communication committee for our neighborhood association. And I joined that because the city was not giving out information. They're not transparent. They're not accountable. And all the Portlanders that have been here for very long are very disappointed in the leadership. That's why I'm running, is because of course, you can say what people for Portland have proposed is a bad idea. But what solutions have they seen? They haven't seen anything to help the homeless. It's been getting worse and worse. And we have like the lowest level of police in 30 years. And you can say, oh, well, let's just get rid of the police. Well, you see what happens. We have the most homicides in our history last year. And they don't even give us all the numbers of what it is for this year. I'm just talking about last year. People are disgusted and they're disillusioned, and people are moving out of Portland like crazy. We need good leadership. It's the leadership that is the problem, not people for Portland. They're just disheartened and disillusioned and disgusted. And if you walk around most of Portland, you will be too, because you'll see people in crisis. And some people have just taken up the initiative to do it themselves. We have teams that are just picking up the garbage. There used to be garbage cans on every street.
All right, so our next question. How do you feel about bringing budgeting styles like participatory budgeting to Portland? I believe we'll start with Joanne.
I had a proposal in 2020 to do a participatory budgeting process with our houseless community members. I gave that money back because right after I got it approved in the budget, COVID hit. And it became extremely impossible to actually do an appropriate participatory budgeting process. I know that there's an ask now at City Hall to do a participatory budgeting process with youth. And let me just say, today I learned we got 36 million extra bucks, so I'm hoping that those youth will come out in force during our budget engagement process and actually demand we do that. I think that we can do a youth-led participatory budgeting process through this May budget vote. But I have not heard a good plan yet, but I'm very willing to work with a group of young people to come up with a plan that makes sense, that will show us results, and will give us something to model a future effort on. So I'm looking forward to the conversation and the advocacy from our youth, because when they come and they're organized, just like the Sunrise Movement, when those young people come to City Hall, they are so prepared, and I'm ready to give them anything they ask for.
Thank you. Kim.
Participatory budgeting, I think, is a good idea, because we do need the citizens to be involved in the budget process, because right now, Portland, you're not seeing where the money's going. As I said, last year, the state of Oregon had a $1.9 billion surplus, and we haven't seen where that money's going. You can look around the city and not see progress. You're seeing decay. So I would love to have a participatory budget process so we would have some transparency from our city, our leadership. We need to know where the money is being spent. We need to know what's being done. We don't hear from the city about what they're doing to help us, and we can surely see what the city is doing that's hurting us. We are all taxpayers, or people living here. We all deserve to know where the money's going and what they're doing and what they're proposing and what they're planning, because I haven't seen much happen in the last well, many years, but especially the last few years. And though they're still getting their salary, even during the pandemic, they got paid, so why don't we see any progress? And we've had a windfall of money. So I just want to know where the money's going. I'm sure everybody else does. I'd love to have everybody involved and have some accountability and transparency so that we all know what we can be involved in, and we can come up. If you have more voices, you will have more ideas and more plans and more just participation. That's what it's all about.
Thank you, Kim. Finally, we have Vadim.
Thank you. Who here has participated in the budget hearing? All right, I see maybe about 5 hands. So participatory budgeting is very important, but I'll tell you what, it's really hard right now. It was hard before the pandemic. Basically, you can sign up, but you might not be heard. You can fill out a form online, which may or may not be read. When you have these budget meetings, dignitaries would go to the front of the line. If you're an elected official, you can speak first, from Metro or otherwise. If you have certain interests, you can speak first, and then everybody else fills in later. We have not had participatory budgeting in Portland Portland. And I tell you what, during the pandemic was the best time to do it. Everybody was on Zoom. Everybody could have been heard from their homes, by their phones, by computer. And we did not have participatory budget at a time when we were really connecting the world through very easy means rather than having people go to downtown or go to certain places to participate. So we can't say that we couldn't have done better. We need to have it in the future because people are out there and they're upset. We have the highest tax rate here in Portland in the whole country. What are we getting for it? We can't pick up the trash. We can't clean up the graffiti. Homeless people are dying at record rates in the streets. We have a humanitarian crisis, and apparently we can't prevent gun violence in Portland either. What are we doing with the money? You all need to decide what to do with the money. Part of it is, come and testify, but the city council needs to be better. We need to have working with neighborhood associations, with houses of worship, wherever people gather. That's where city council needs to be to hear from y'all.
Thank you. That is all the time we have tonight for this amazing forum. You all were amazing audience. We do want to have a little moment to just do final remarks. So we'll start off with Kim, if you have any final remarks for us.
Yes, I would ask that you look at my website, see why I'm running. Don't listen to the ads from the big corporate sponsors. Don't listen to the big corporations because corporations are not people and money is not speech. You should hear what the people with passion that are speaking up for Portland and all Portlanders. So please, look into why people are running, look at what they've done in their lives and vote your conscience.
Thank you. Vadim.
Together, we'll succeed in overcoming these crises. Together, we will succeed. There are people that want to divide us between East versus West, between businesses and employees, between labor and other individuals, all along dividing lines, but together we will succeed. We can find a way to be compassionate and help the homeless community, but at the same time balance the interests of neighborhood associations or neighborhoods in which they live. We can find a way to address the gun violence in this city, while at the same time helping individuals that are young and keeping them from being able to enter a life of crime by providing opportunities. We can address the housing crisis in the city by working together with neighborhood associations, with developers, with housing advocates, and with the city to come together at policies and ways to build cheap housing. Together, we can succeed. Thank you.
Thank you. Joanne.
I want to thank you so much for inviting us to be here this evening. And I will say, please, do your research. It's always fabulous to hear what people say. But I actually have a record that I am proud of. And please go to joanneforportland.com. If you have any doubt of who serves working people in the city of Portland, if you have any doubt who the voice is for people of color in this city, if you have any doubt for who is the voice for people who have had no voice at City Hall, go to joanneforportland.com and put your doubt at ease. I am the candidate to continue to make the systems changes that are desperately needed to make sure all Portlanders thrive. Thank you.
Let's hear it for all of our City Commissioner Position 3 candidates. Special shout out to Polaris Dance Theater for providing this space tonight. Let's show them some love. And some extra love for the wranglers of this beautiful event, Multnomah County Democrats. Thank you so much for putting on this amazing event. Everyone, please get home safe and be warm.